Let's build a basic to-do list RESTful API by using Axum, Postgres database, and SQLx. In desktop, let's create a new folder. Let's give it a name Axum. In terminal, let's type cd, then drag this folder into the terminal. Let's press enter. We will change current directory to this Axum folder. In this folder, let's generate a Rust project. So we will run cargo new. Let's give it a name to do. Let's press enter. Let's open this Axum folder. You can see it will generate a new folder named to do. So let's drag this to do folder into Visual Studio Code. Let's open a new terminal in Visual Studio Code. So terminal, new terminal. First, let's go to this cargo.toml file. We need to add some dependencies to our project. Here we add a ToQ as a synchronous runtime, 30 and 30 JSON to serialize and deserialize JSON data, and Axum as backend server, SQLx to connect to Postgres database, and the runtime is ToQ. Let's go to Postgres database to create a database for our project. In terminal, let's type a PSQL to enter Postgres database. Then let's create a database. Create a database. Let's give the name to do underscore list semicolon. It will tell us create a database. Then let's connect to this database. So /c to do list semicolon. So we are connected to this database to do list. In this database, let's create a table. So create a table. Let's give it a name to do's. A powerful parenthesis. Let's start a new line. In this new line, let's add a colon, ID, serial, primary key, comma. So this ID will be automatically increased and also will be unique. Let's add a second colon. Let's give the name content. Type, let's give it a varchar. A powerful parenthesis, 255. Then let's add this powerful parenthesis. Let's add a semicolon. Press enter. It will tell us create a table. Now let's go to src folder, main.rs file. In main.rs file, let's first create a struct type. Let's give the name to do. Let's add a field ID. Let's give the type integer type ester2. Let's give it a second field content. Type will give it a string. We use this struct type to interact with database, so it will have same fields as this to-dos table in database ID and content. Then we need to add a attribute derive. We need to add a attribute from row import from SQLx, so we can use this struct type to interact with database. Then let's also add another attribute serialize, so we can serialize this struct type value to JSON value. Let's create another struct type. Let's give the name to do request. We use this struct type to get the contents value from user request. So let's only add one field. Content type will be string. Then we need to add attribute derive deserialize. So we can deserialize JSON value to this to-do request type value. Then let's define a function to connect to database. So this function needs to be a single function. Let's give the name db. Return type will be pj. Pull import from SQLx. Let's create a variable, give the name pull equal to, we will call SQLx Postgres pj pull connector function. Then we'll pass a connector string. because we will connect to Postgres database, it will start with Postgres, then colon // First is username. My username is Mike. Colon, then is password. My password is 123456. This username you should change it to your username, and this password should change it to your password. Then add local host colon. By default, Postgres port is 5432 / then the database name to-do underscore list. We create this database in Postgres database. Then we need to call await to handle the filter and unwrap to handle the result. Last, let's return this poll from this function. Let's define our first handler. We use this handler to get all the to-do items from database. So let's define a sync function, a sync fn. Let's give the name get to-do list. We will add a parameter to this handler. It will be state hold pool, so we can get a shared state pool from this parameter. Type will be state pj pool. Returning type will give it a impl into response. In its handler, let's create a variable give the name to-dos. We'll give it a type annotation. Whack hold to-do struct type we defined here equal to SQLx query as function. In its query as function, we will write a SQL select asterisk from to-dos table. Then we will call fetch all method. We will pass a reference to this pool as argument. So ref pool. Then we will call await to handle the filter and unwrap to handle the result. After we select all the to-do items and store in this vector, we will serialize this vector to JSON data. So let's create a variable to-dos JSON equal to 30 JSON to string pretty. Then we pass a reference this to-dos as argument. Let's call unwrap to handle the result. Last, let's send a response. First is status code. OK. Then we'll pass this to-dos JSON as the second element in its tuple. Let's define our second handler. We use this handler to get one specific to-do item by ID. So let's define a sync function. Let's give the name get a single to-do. It will have a parameter state pool to get the shared state database pool. Then we will add a second parameter to get the ID from dynamic path. So it will be path import from Axum extractor path. In its path, let's add a parameter. Let's give it a name ID. Type will be path. In its path, let's give it an integer type i32. Return type, we will give it a impl into response. Let's create a variable, give it the name to-dos. We will give it a type annotation, whack, hold this to-do struct type equal to, then we will call SQLx query as function. We will write a SQL select asterisk from to-dos where id equal to, we use $1 as a placeholder. Then we will call bind method to bind the value to its placeholder. So we will pass a ref id. So this id will replace this placeholder $1. Then let's call fetch all method. We'll pass a ref pool as argument. Then let's call await to handle the filter, unwrap to handle the result. Then we need to check this vector to-dos. So if the to-dos length equal to 0, this means we didn't find any to-do items by this ID from dynamic path. So let's format a message, format no to do ID found ID. Then let's send a response status code not found with this message. Else, we found a to-do by its ID. This to-do will store in its vector, and it's the first element in its vector. So let's serialize that to-do. Let to-do JSON equal to 30 JSON to string pretty. Ref to-do's first element index number is 0. Then we call unwrap to handle the result. Last, let's send the response status code OK. Then it's to-do JSON. Let's define our third handler. We use this handler to add a new to-do to the database. Let's define a sync function. Let's give the name add to-do. We will add a parameter state pool so we can get a shared state database pool. Then we will add a second parameter will be JSON import from Axum JSON. In its JSON, let's add a parameter. Let's give the name to do write. Type will be JSON. Hold is to do request struct type. So to do request. Return type will be IMPL. Into response. So let's insert a new to do to the database SQLx query function. Let's write a SQL insert into to-dos table. We only need to insert a value for content. So content, then values. We use $1 as the first placeholder. Then let's call bind method to bind the value to the placeholder. So we'll pass a reference is to do write the content as argument. Then we will call execute method. We pass a reference pool as argument. Then let's call await to handle the future and unwrap to handle the result. Last, let's send a response status code OK and add a new to do successful. Let's define our fourth handler. We use this handler to delete one specific to-do item from database by ID. This handler is very similar to this get a single to-do handler. So let's copy this get a single to-do handler. Then let's pass it here. We will change the handler's name to delete to-do. It will take one parameter is state pool and a second parameter pass ID. Then first we need to select that to-do item by this ID from database. Then we will check if the to-do item by this ID not in the database, we just send a response not found that to-do item. If we find that to-do item, then let's delete that to-do item from database. Let's remove this. We don't need to serialize that to-do item. We will write a SQLx query delete from to-dos table where ID equal to $1. Then let's bind the value ref ID. Then let's execute a ref poll. Let's call await to handle the future and wrap to handle the result. We will send the response status code OK. Delete to do successful. Then we will call toString to convert this string slash to string. So the type in its tuple will match the type in its tuple. Let's define our last handler. We'll use this handler to update to-do items. It's very similar to this delete to-do handler. So let's copy this delete to-do handler and paste it here. Let's change this handler's name to update to-do. It will take a parameter state pool to get a database pool and a path ID to get the ID from dynamic path. Then we will add another parameter JSON to do rec to get the contents value from user request. So in this handler, first we need to find that to do by ID from database. Then we will check. If we not found that to do item, we just send a message not found that to do. Else we found that to do item. Let's update that to do item. So let's remove this. Let's write a SQLx query function update to do's site content equal to $1. Then let's add a where condition where id equal to $2. Then let's call bind method to bind the value to replace this placeholder. First, we need to replace this first placeholder. $1 is a new content, so it will be ref to do rec the content. We will call bind method again to replace this second placeholder. Is a ref id. Then let's call execute method. We will pass a ref poll as argument. Then let's call await to handle the future and unwrap to handle the result. In its response, let's change this message to update to do successful. Let's define a function to create a new router. So async -, execute name app, return type will be router import from Axum. In this function, let's first get the database pool. So let's create a variable pool equal to, we'll call db function dot await. This function will return this database pool. Then let's create a new router and also return that router. So router new function. Let's call root method. So first pass, let's give it a to do list. Let's give it a request method get. In this get, we will pass a handler get to do list. Let's remove this pair of parentheses. Let's add a second router. Add to do. Then request method will give it a post. This post will pass a handler add to do. Let's remove this pair of parentheses. Let's add another router. Let's give it a path to do. This route we will add a dynamic segment. We will put a variable name in curly brackets, so this will be dynamic segment. Method we will give it a get. Then we'll pass a handler get a single to do. Let's add another router. Let's give it a path delete to do. Then we will add a dynamic segment ID. We'll pass a method delete. Then we'll pass a handler delete to do. Let's remove this. Let's add a last router. Path, we will give it a slash update to do dynamic segment ID. Then we give it a request method put. We pass a handler update to do. Let's remove this. Last, we will call with state method to share the database pool as the shared state. So we'll pass a pool as argument. Then let's go to the main function. First, we will add an attribute tokyo main for main function. So we can add a sync keyword for this main function. So this main function will be a sync function. First, let's get the Axum router. Let's create a variable app equal to, we'll call app function dot await to get the router. Then let's create a listener from Tokyo. So let's create a variable let a listener equal to Tokyo night TCP listener bind let's bind the address 0.0.0.0 3000 await unwrap. Then let's serve our Axum server. We'll call Axum serve function. We'll pass a listener as first argument and a router as second argument. So this app. Then we call await to handle the filter and unwrap to handle the result. Let's open a new terminal. Let's start our server. We'll run cargo run. Then we will use Postman to test our API. In Postman, let's open a new tab. First, let's visit localhost 3000 / to-do list. Request method will be get. Let's send this request. We'll get an empty vector because currently there are no to-do items in database. Let's open a new tab. We will visit localhost 3000 / add to-do. Request method will change to post. Here body row JSON. In this field, let's add JSON content. Let's give the value run. Let's send this request. We got a response. Add a new to-do successful. Let's add another to-do work. Let's send this request. Add a new to-do successful. Let's go back to first one. Let's get a to-do list again. Send this request. This time you can see we get a vector contains 2 to-do items. Let's open a new tab. We'll visit localhost 3000 to-do / let's give it ID 1. Request method get. Let's send this request. So we will get the first to-do item ID is 1, content is run. Let's change ID to 2. We get a second to-do item ID 2, content is work. Let's change this ID to 3. When we send this request, we get a response. No to-do item ID 3 found. Let's open a new tab. Let's visit localhost 3000, delete to-do / 1. Let's change this request method to delete. Let's send this request. Here we got a status 404 not found. Let's go back to Visual Studio Code. In delete root, here should be delete DELETE. Let's restart our server. First, let's shut down our server. Then let's start our server again. Let's go back to Postman. Let's send this delete request again. So this time you can see delete to do successful. Then let's go back to first one. Let's get the to-do list. This time this list only contains one to-do item. ID is 2, content is work. Let's open a new tab. Let's visit localhost 3000. Update to do. Let's update second to-do item. ID is 2. Request method will be put body row JSON. Let's add a JSON content. Let's change to drink water. Let's send this request. So it will tell us update to do successful. Let's go back to first tab. Let's send this request again to get the to-do list. This time you can see the second to-do item content changed to drink water. This is how we use Axum Postgres database and SQLx to build a basic to-do list API. Hope to see you next time.